I am a senior researcher at a quantum computing startup called Xanadu, and we're building a photonic quantum computer. Some of you might have heard of us. We're sitting in Toronto. I'm based in South Africa, though. My expertise is in doing machine learning with quantum computers, and I'm still having a part-time researcher position here at the local University of KwaZulu-Natal, doing a bit more like classical machine learning, natural language processing and stuff like that. And I'm always a bit like, when I get invited to give talks at like women in science events, I'm always feeling a bit like an imposter. I know we talk a lot about imposters, but this is the moment where I feel a bit like an imposter, because I feel I've never been really like badly conscious of the fact that I'm a female scientist. So I love to hang out with female scientists, but I'm not so, I never had a disadvantage. I was never in a really bad situation of sexual harassment, all the stories that I hear from other people. And I'm quite self-confident. So I'm a lot of the things that I think I would rather learn from others than like actually telling you about my story. On the other hand, it takes a lot of people to make a world. So that's kind of my perspective and my way here. Okay. Let me give you a bit of a kind of like setup of like where I come from and where I came to where I'm now. I'm German, as you can probably hear, and I come from the Rhinelands. I actually grew up a bit later. We moved to Cologne, which is a medium-sized city in Germany. And since this story is about physics, so when I went to school there, I think for me physics always had a bit of a strange role. I didn't like it at school, but it had a bit of a magic or romantic feel to it. So I thought physics would give us, at least modern physics, like relativity theory, quantum theory, would give us answers to the questions of why are we here, or how does the world work, and stuff like that. So I was always after the big questions. And there's one event, maybe this is like a good metaphor for this whole like romanticizing physics, where I was sitting in a lecture. In Germany, there were public lectures, and if there was quantum in the name, I would immediately go. A room full of people, maybe hundreds of people. And the lecture was like constantly showing pictures like this here. And if you're in physics, this is like a double wall potential. I think I haven't seen it since my undergrad, but I just looked at it and I thought like, this looks like breasts to me. And this doesn't really answer the question of like the universe and stuff. So it was very strange, because like I thought I would get answers to my biggest questions here. And this guy at the front was just like thinking about the most smallest questions about his theory. No one was even able to understand him. Funny enough, in the audience, there were lots of old men, like these white-haired, slightly confused, like type, who were probably also scientists, who were actually on my side. They wanted to know about the wave function collapse and ontology of the wave function. And the speaker was so confused. And in some sense, what I tell you in the next 5 minutes is like how I got to the other side, how I am now often a speaker who talks about quantum machine learning. And I know my audience is full of people who want to hear about the magic. And I'm only interested in how we can resemble a support vector machine with, a quantum model or whatever. So yeah, this is how life goes, I guess. When there was the time to decide what to study, I thought like physics was really an option, because I just wanted to find out what people know in physics. And I went to Berlin. This was the city that I picked out to live in. It's the biggest. It's far away from my home. So, and I walked through the physics department here. This is what you see. This is this beautiful building from, I guess, the 70s. And it smelled like urine. It was dark. And everyone was pale, and I thought, now do I become this person that I saw in the lecture, this person who does only one little thing and doesn't see the world really? So I decided not to study physics. I decided to study political science in a completely different university in the same city, and I actually loved it. So and I followed all the way through to a master's degree with political science. But even after a couple of months, I realized, okay, there's this dream of mine. I still have to like kind of follow up on it. And there was actually, this is where maybe woman initiative really helped me. There was a bachelor's program that was intended for exactly people like me who don't want to specialize. They want to do science, but they don't want to specialize. Often women are like that. And they thought, let's give the bachelor's degree a really long name. I think it was Natural Science in Information Society or something. And you just like force them to do exactly the same undergraduate program like that computer scientists, mathematicians, and physicists do at the same time. So it's super hardcore, but just give it a nice name. So for a long time, I studied like both together. And then, and this brings me like where I come. Oh yeah, by the way, like it was only possible, these are the two universities, because I'm a really fast biker. No, I don't stop at red traffic lights. So it's exactly 36 minutes between the two campuses that I was at. And it's exactly 30 minutes between two lectures. I was constantly like going like forth and back. Got very fit in those days just from studying. And then something really unique happened. I think that has, I don't know, it's probably the most defining moment of my life. I had to do an internship for my physics degree and for my political science degree, where I was studying like war to democracy transitions in Africa, especially. So I Googled Africa physics because I thought if I find a place where I can do field research in the one and there's a physics department, I can do both. And this is obviously a Google search from today. I don't know what happened like back in the day, but I found this email address, like physics@Africa or something. I sent an email. Some absolutely lovely soul replied and got a couple of options. And then I ended up in Durban for an internship. And then this is where I'm sitting right now, somewhere here, not far from the ocean, actually. And then after a couple of minutes in Durban, my entire life plan changed and I realized I'm staying. So for a couple of years, I had a bit of a limbo, finishing the degrees, flying back home, doing all these things. Then my master's degree, or both the masters, were finished. And I thought, okay, I want to become a political scientist now. I want to influence the world, be relevant for society, whatever. I went for job interviews. I didn't get any position. I went through an assessment center. I failed. I even applied for a maths position and I failed because there was some probability theory I didn't know in the test. And oh my gosh. So I decided to go back to university and I joined the group that I visited in the first place. It's the quantum research group in South Africa led by Francesco Potoccione. He's one of these big influencers in my life who really has, given me all the opportunities. So basically gave me freedom to do whatever I want and a lot of money to go to conferences. And this has set me up for where I am now, basically. So you see that Einstein was obviously not in our group, but okay, bad joke. So this is the physics department. I started my PhD there, and now that's the fact that I never wanted to become a physicist. I've tapped into it. I was happy. I finished my degree. I wanted to do something completely different. Really set me free because I could choose whatever topic I wanted. And I decided to do my PhD in something I've already started in some kind of crazy master's degree, and that was to try and understand how neural networks, in this case, like biological or mathematical model of biological neural networks, like the Hopfield model here, how they can kind of be modeled by quantum physics, how quantum physics could have an effect in the brain. What happens if you quantize these things? This is a really bad image, I think, in my first paper that, I just saw it again and thought it's quite cute or funny. I started my PhD degree and there was no one researching in that field. I wanted to take a bit of a computational angle, actually not the biological neural networks, but try to find a quantum neural network or something like that. And then I saw this paper. This paper never was published. It's still on the archive. I don't think it contains the craziest of ideas. But for me, this was absolutely important because I saw that a couple of other people who are from much better institutions than I was actually interested in that stuff. And the only thing I wanted in my PhD, I wanted to obviously understand and do research, but I also wanted to find friends. So my goal was I want to have a community. At the end of my PhD, I want to find those people I can talk to. So I thought maybe those guys want to be my friends. And actually all three of them are. And especially Patrick is actually responsible for me being at Xanadu now. So again, the story evolves. Let me just check because when I start talking, I talk a lot. So, but I'm almost at the end. And then actually, so after this paper, I knew a couple of people are interested in that stuff. And then a couple of workshops started to be organized. And the first one, I would say, really on quantum machine learning, on the stuff that I was looking into, was at the NIPS 2015, which is a very famous and very influential machine learning conference. It was a workshop here. And I remember flying there. As I said, my boss was very generous, giving me a lot of money. Even if I didn't present, he actually sent me all the way from South Africa to Montreal because he knew this was important to connect. And I sat in this room in the morning. I think I was an hour early and I was really, really excited. I wasn't even nervous. I was just so excited. I thought all of these people in the room, they will become my peers and my friends now. And it was really amazing because for the first time I spoke to people who really understood my topic, where I didn't always have to explain myself, but who thought the way I thought, where I could learn a lot of things. That was just fantastic. So the next thing that we did a year later is we organized a very small workshop in South Africa, invited a lot of those people in there. And you see, so Patrick and Seth are the people from the paper that I just talked about. Vedran is now in Leiden. He was very influential, one of the first people who did quantum machine learning. We've got Alejandro here from Zapata, who was at NASA for a long time. We have Peter, who was basically the father in some sense of quantum machine learning. He thought about these ideas years before even I started. And yeah, so it's kind of like almost a group picture. A couple of people are missing, but of the first generation of this field and this community. And over the next couple of years, the community grew and more and more people started getting interested in it. Lots of startups, lots of companies. I finished my PhD and I was in an interesting position because out of nothing, I mean, I didn't even want all this. I was in a position that I was probably in the world the only person with a quantum machine learning PhD degree. And all the companies needed that skill. So all of a sudden, before I couldn't even get a job, now I got a lot of job offers. But they were all in America. Some of them were in Europe. And yeah, so the big decision for me was then, do I actually give up the place that I found and that I want to actually grow old and want to be for kind of to follow this career, to use this opportunity? I was at that stage at an internship at Microsoft in Seattle, maybe also to suss out a bit like if, you know, this is a place you can live, and just took the decision, no, I won't leave Durban. I kind of like looked at my priorities, I ordered them, and I realized my first one is my family and my friends. The second one is Durban and South Africa. And then there's physics. So I would give up physics if I don't have to leave the place where I am. And so I took that decision, and 2 days later, Christian from the founder of Xanadu, the company that I'm working for now, called me and said like, hey, we want to offer you a job in Toronto. And we started conversations, and I actually like flew over, and I told him I just decided 2 days ago I won't leave where I am, and I know this will be bad for my career or whatever people say, but yeah, I can't help. And then they were very, very accommodating and told me, okay, then we support this. And up to today, so this was like 3 years ago, up to today, they just like bent over backwards that allow me to actually like work from home, because I said this is the one non-negotiable that I have. Otherwise, you know, I'm happy to put all my lifeblood into this. And then lastly, maybe just quickly what I'm doing at Xanadu, and also in the last couple of years, I put a lot of work and my time into developing a software framework, which is called Pennylane. Pennylane allows you to like optimize and train quantum computations. And this is interesting for me because the type of quantum machine learning that I'm very, very interested in is this idea of taking a machine learning pipeline. For example, on the left here, I've got code written in Torch. In PyTorch is obviously a very stupid example. And you replace some of the parts of the computations with a quantum model. So this is now in Pennylane, just like how you would write a little quantum circuit that you can train like a model. So it has like parameters and stuff like that. And how can you basically enable or put quantum computing into this like huge knowledge and wealth of methods of machine learning, of deep learning that is like happening at the moment? And so this is like what Pennylane does. And then I do a lot of research on top of that that's more theoretical. That's this idea of what are these quantum circuits actually doing when you use them for machine learning? So they embed data into Hilbert spaces and represent them as quantum states. And then measurements kind of decide how to distinguish between the data. So how can we like join what we know from quantum theory into this? So this is like kind of where I'm at the moment, and I absolutely love it. And yeah, and then if I've got time, maybe I can talk for 1 or 2 minutes. So I don't have, you know, like we're not here to give recommendations or tips. I guess a lot of you are maybe a bit younger than me or just like planning their career. I get a lot of emails of people asking, what should I do? Where should I apply for jobs? Which PhD? And so on and so forth. I speak a lot with female scientists who are completely desperate because they're constantly like overburden themselves and they're like very, very scared of not like achieving the things they want to. But who am I to give recommendations to people? But I have the super weapon that always gave me power, and it took me a long time to understand actually how to name it. And I think the name that I want to give it is critical thinking. And you now think, oh, we're all scientists, we all think critically, but I don't think that a lot of scientists really think critically. What I mean by critical thinking is to understand that you are part of a social group that has a certain culture, and to kind of like look behind that curtain that influences you and that biases you and that like kind of brainwashes you, and kind of pick apart what is actually your priority, what is their priority, what is behavior that reinforces things that I don't like, how can I contribute? So it's basically looking around and really like seeing what's there. Well, I think it's a super weapon is because it helped me. For example, in this moment where I was thinking, I I've got now an offer from this really good university and from this really cool company. I always wanted to work for them. Like, that would be so cool. The critical thinking in me realized, even if I'm at MIT or Harvard or have a really good position, this is not my life goal. Like, this was never my life goal. So basically to like shed off this like layer that's given to you from the outside. So what can this do for you, for example, is to look through the power structures around you. If you're on a conference or if you're in a room where people speak to each other, they have a certain culture. They, for example, in their talk, they just like call each other by first names. So that immediately like shows, oh, the speaker is involved. He's part of the inside group. I'm not like saying that this is a bad thing after all, but if you look through the critical thinking eyes onto that, you don't feel like, oh, I'm excluded because I don't belong. But you might think, oh, maybe this is a strategy. Oh, interesting. What's happening here? You also start, like, for example, not giving so much weight to people only because of the institutions that's on their name. So, for example, I realized that from South Africa, from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is not a high-ranking university, I can do whatever I want and I can be whoever I want. So it turns like this whole thing upside down. And lastly, what I think critical thinking gives you very often is that as scientists, we have to take a lot of moral decisions. I think every hour in my scientific life, I take a moral decision that ranges from, am I nicer to this person because he or she is more famous than that person or not? Do I reply to emails of students who I really don't have the time, but I know they're desperate? So like, do I actually send them something? Do I have an ego? Do I like complain to people or feel angry if they don't cite my papers? So how can I hold my ego in check? And critically thinking means also like to like look at you in a very critical way and realize why you're doing the things you're doing.